Live from your home of anonymous hate speech, you're listening to Techies Talking Tech Tonight, locally known as T4. I'm your host, Trey Comstock, and it is Tuesday, October 7th, 2014. And I am joined by Executive Editor Jimmy Principe.
Hello, Internet.
Hello, Jimmy. So this is Techies Talking Tech Tonight. This is the show where we just sort of spit hot game about some things. About some hot games. Ooh, it's so clever. Oh, man. So we are going to kind of lead off with gaming, but I promise you we are going to get to some anonymous hate speech because
it's all about the anonymous hate speech.
It is all about the anonymous hate speech. And boy, have I been spending some time this week with anonymous hate speech. Turns out when you name a show Gamergate, you are cowards at best, you get a reaction.
It's like we put some bait on the lure and threw it out there.
It's like I deliberately poked the bear or something, which it did.
Crazy bastard.
So we promised this on the other show that on this show we would talk about Shadows of Mordor, and we're going to. Shadows of Mordor is an incredible game. It is an incredible game. Some people describe it as Assassin's Creed meets the Batman Arkham series. I think that's totally reasonable because it's all the mechanics of Assassin's Creed with the combat of Batman Arkham.
Batman Arkham has some interesting combat.
And I love the mechanics of Assassin's Creed. There are towers, you creep along ledges, you hold a trigger for stealth mode, as opposed to holding the trigger for open mode, but there's some subtle differences. And also it has a much more extensive upgrade tree than Assassin's Creed. It is one of its core mechanics is you assassinate some dudes, but in a really cool emergent way. So there's this idea of what's called emergent gameplay, and that is that things aren't scripted, that things happen procedurally, so that things just sort of happen naturally rather than relying on a scripted sequence. Assassin's Creed is very much based on scripted sequences. What Shadows of Mordor does is it takes the idea of assassination and has it all happen procedurally. So here's what I mean. So let me give you an example of it. So let's say I fight an orc. I'm fighting a whole bunch of orcs, and one of those orcs kills me. That orc that killed me, through what's called the Nemesis system, will now become an orc captain. He will get promoted. And so now you have to kill him as a captain, and he becomes much more powerful and can work his way up the orc hierarchy. And a lot of what you're doing in this game is trying to disrupt the orc hierarchy so that you can take over the orc war chiefs. And that's one of the key mechanics. It's called the Nemesis system. And it's the actual next-gen part of this game. And that all of this Nemesis system stuff is happening in a very procedurally generated way. How you play the game determines what orcs get promoted, for instance, and what orcs you encounter. And you can literally kill them in any way. But in killing them is where this gets away from Batman and Assassin's Creed, and why I say this is Assassin's Creed meets Dark Souls, because this is a challenging game.
A hateful game. Does it hate the player?
It certainly dislikes you. It may not hate you, but it certainly dislikes you.
It has a moderate dislike for you.
So, you may face an orc captain over and over again, run into them, and they'll remember that they've killed you, or that you ran away.
Oh, wow.
And so they'll call that out in battle, again with the procedurally generated side.
That's interesting.
And so it's that deep level mechanic that's interesting, but it's the difficulty that worries me. Because I admit, I don't like hard games.
No, that's one of the things you really like about Assassin's Creed, that it's hard enough, that there's not like an advanced level of Assassin's Creed. It's as hard as you make it.
Right, but I don't feel like it's just push to win, but there is some challenge to it. But then it's fundamentally kind of easy. And I like that because then I can just get through the story and I'm just participating in this fun story. As Shadows of Mordor, you got to work. And another difference where it's a little more Dark Souls-like is there is not a place where you won't run into combat. So Assassin's Creed, there's plenty of the game world where you won't get into a fight. You can, unlike it's much more like the first Assassin's Creed, where you were constantly at risk of tripping the guards. Here you're in Mordor, right? So everywhere is hostile territory. And so everywhere you can run into an orc fight.
So is your character in Shadows of Mordor actually a
He's a ranger.
Okay,
He's a ranger.
I was like, where's your character?
He's a ranger of Gondor, who is also having his body inhabited by a wraith, specifically a very famous wraith. If you've read the Silmarillion, I recommend reading the Silmarillion to really understand what's going on.
Which one?
The Silmarillion.
No. The what's his face?
He's an elf lord. He's an elf lord who once possessed the One Ring.
Ah.
Yeah. So, spoiler alert. They talked about this in the pre-release stuff, so I don't feel that bad spoiling it. So you're a ranger in Mordor, so you're constantly under threat. And so you could end up in a fight at any moment. Make the orcs aware of you, and they get yellow triangles, except they're flipped over upside down. But they get yellow triangles above their head, and when they turn red, you're in a fight, okay? There are archers on rooftops. You've been here before. But the difficulty
is everything that you had thought you had seen before.
Right. But in some ways, it is a new take on the Assassin's Creed genre. As a specific subgenre within open world games, because of the difficulty in the combat. If you are surrounded by 25 guys, you will die. Run away. Now, your enemies are not nearly as nimble, so you can run away. Unlike Assassin's Creed, where like running away is the worst.
There are those guys that are faster than you and can chase you down. I hate those guys.
Yeah, no, there's none of that. So you can actually running away is a viable option in this game in a way that I don't always feel it is in Assassin's Creed.
Right.
But there is not a moment of safety. You have to be on guard constantly, and it kind of makes the game a little exhausting to watch and play because you're just constantly ending up in combat or running. So it is a much more involved game, which I think is why it is generally critically involved, receives a more positive view than Assassin's Creed, because it is not super easy and it is more challenging, and so it hits that Dark Souls center in the review community in a way that Assassin's Creed and Batman aren't going to.
What's its
Metacritic? I don't know off the top of my head. It's got to be pretty high though.
I'm checking right now. So GameStop gave it
whatever. Keep in mind, the reason why I make that distinction is, remember, GameStop owns Game Informer.
Right.
So GameStop does review games under the moniker of Game Informer.
Right. So GameSpot,
Kevin Van Ord reviewing,
gave it an 8 out of 10.
And Brad Shoemaker at Giant Bomb gave it 5 out of 5.
Metacritic is an 86. Let's see.
That's a for real Metacritic score.
The highest is IGN, gave it a 93.
Well, Giant Bomb gave it a 100, so that can't be the highest.
Well, unless the Giant Bomb score just hasn't aggregated yet.
It should have.
We have a bunch of 85s. Yeah, no, it hasn't aggregated yet.
Interesting.
Interesting. Why is we only have 11 critic reviews?
Is it a version issue? Because the PS4 version is an 85.
Is PC.
Yeah. Go to the PS4 version, which has 52 critics. And that's where the Guardian 100, Giant Bomb 100, Joystick 100, Polygon 95, IGN 93, Gamer Age 91, Lazy Gamer 9. I mean, this is
Game Informer 83,
which is low for them. Usually they are slightly overly enthusiastic.
Xbox One is an 86.
I mean, Destructoid's the lowest, and it's a 60. Like, this is... Kevin's 80 is one of the lower scores.
Yeah.
And his was a very positive review from a man who's a deep fan of the Assassin's Creed series.
Right.
I just don't know if I'm going to be able to stick with it or not, because
Well, it sounds like my type of game, really.
Sure.
It sounds like it's right up my alley. So probably I'm going to play this before the end of the year for our Game of the Year discussion.
I mean, this is absolutely rocketed to the top of our game of the year discussion. Even from my, I have not beaten the game yet. Have not been able to spend that much time with it, but I've spent some time with it, and I'm enjoying it. I have so little gaming time at this point in my life that
Amen.
I have no time. I spend more time talking about gaming than I do gaming some weeks, it feels like.
Yeah, amen to that.
So, but yeah, if you are a fan of open world games, really if you are a fan of video games, buy this game. This is not like fans of the genre will. No, this goes beyond fans of the genre or fans of the Assassin's Creed series. I mean, I am a fan of the genre and a fan of the Assassin's Creed series, and so like this is my perfect game perhaps, or close. That are Assassin's Creed Unity.
Yeah, I need to finish Watch Dogs and what's the game from? Oh my god, I'm not gonna remember what it. Infamous Second Son. I have to finish those two games, and then I'm gonna trade those in for this.
Cool. Yeah, I absolutely.
I'm all about turning old games into new games.
I traded in Pikmin 3 and the original Dead Rising and something else to get this one for $35. So that's how I justified my pre-order of the Assassin's Creed Hidden Blade.
Oh my god.
Which that was dumb. I do some dumb things. So you will probably hear more talk of this as we continue to play through it. The plot so far is kind of middling. But the emergent gameplay is enough that the plot isn't awful. The Gollum stuff's a little weird. Gollum appears, and that's a little weird. Stay tuned because I think you're going to hear more about this game as we go through the year. I think this is one of those games that's going to, like GTA kept doing last year, it just
keeps coming up.
And that and Black Flag, it's just going to keep coming up. I'm not excited about it in that way. I was excited about Gone Home, but Gone Home touched me in a very special place.
Many things I could say to that.
If you know what I mean. So from one of the top games of the year to a game we're not going to play, but I think we should talk about, Drive Club.
Oh, Drive Club. So first off, PlayStation Network, I'd like to pick a fight with you.
What do you do? Because
I was told
fights this week.
I was told when I purchased my PlayStation 4 that I would get a free trial of Drive Club. And then you pushed it off. I was like, okay, so am I still going to get my free trial of this game? And I was assured repeatedly that I was going to get at least a demo, if not much more than a demo, for free. Well, it was released today, and the demo was supposed to come out today as well, or the PlayStation Plus version was supposed to come out today as well. At time of recording, there's still no PlayStation Plus version. The game is available, but the free PlayStation Plus version is not. So, what the hell, PlayStation? What the hell? As far as the reviews of this game, I'm not paying real money for it because Kevin Van Ord gave it a 5.
5 out of 5. Jeff gave it a
5 out of 10.
5 out of 10. Jeff Gersman gave it a 2 out of 5. It's just not.
It's not there. And I think that Trey's comment that he shared before the show was the most apt. Why would you buy this game in a world where Forza Horizon exists?
Right, and that's the thing. Like, it sounds like not a very good version of what Forza Horizon attempts to be. So the driving's not all that great. There's not a whole lot of variety. There's not a whole lot of customizability. There's not just, everyone who I read about this just says there's not a lot of joy there. Whereas Forza Horizon, I played the first one and the second one's out. Like, the first one was pretty good, and it sounds like the second one just builds on what was good about the first one. Has, like, so many different modes and so many different things to do, and it's an open world, and you can also form clubs where you drive with your friends.
And I think we made fun of Drive Club that way when Forza Horizon 2 came out.
Well, no, that's actually a joke that that the makers of Forza Horizon made at the expense of Drive Club because they
Because
got on
it's
stage
so
at E3
neat.
and said, you can drive with your friends. You can form a club. And
Yeah.
so I think that's the kind of by the way, the Ubisoft's The Crew isn't out yet, and that might be another one to look
And that's
at.
kind of the one that I'm watching. I'm gonna buy one of these driving games probably because I actually enjoy driving games.
Well, keep in mind, Forza Horizon is Xbox only.
Right? No, I can't. Not by that I mean Drive Club or
The Crew.
The Crew. And now that the Drive Club reviews have all been released, I'm thinking The Crew is going to be my
The Crew
best and last hope.
The Crew has a little more to it. It is much more based around a similar idea to Forza Horizon. You're doing a cross-country race, and so there's an open world aspect to it, just like Forza Horizon.
And the stuff that they showed that was actual gameplay at E3 looked really good.
It looks a little more arcadey. I mean, Forza Horizon 2 is already the more arcadey of the two Forzas. And this looks like even more arcadey than that. Now, there's nothing wrong with a good arcade racer. The Need for Speed series, which is actually taking a year off for the first time ever. It feels like the first time ever. It certainly made its reputation on being pretty arcadey in a perfectly acceptable way.
Right, and that's not necessarily something that people hold against driving games.
No, as long as you're upfront about it. Yeah.
Well, and driving games are something that have been kind of the cornerstone of arcades for a long time, and console releases we've even discussed in the past have hinged on driving games because a lot of times they're able to show off the graphics in a way that ooh and ah.
Right, and not everyone wants the main Forza games or the Gran Turismo games are trying to do, which is that kind of like absolutely realistic, like trying to perfectly replicate, every little bit. Some people just want a game that they can actually handle, and so that's
just enough and nothing more.
And I think that's clearly what Drive Club was going for. It just sounds like they desperately missed their mark in that it's not that fun to drive, there's not that much variety, and just why? If you want a good arcade racer and you own both consoles, get Forza Horizons 2, or wait for The Crew. The Crew's going to be cross-platform. Drive Club's a PS4 exclusive, Forza Horizon 2's an Xbox One exclusive. But Xbox One the Forza Horizon 2 is a game I'm really looking forward to. I'm going to make sure I play before our Game of the Year discussion because I think that might be in there.
It's possible. With the way the Game of the Years are looking this year, right now it has
Destiny,
a shot at the top 5.
It's it's Destiny, it's Shadows of Mordor, it's Forza Horizon, and it's South Park: The Stick of Truth.
So the thing about Destiny, I think, is really... So Trey was on the phone with me when I discovered that Drive Club was not at all available. And I think that my exact quote was something along the lines of, fuck it, I'm just going to play Destiny.
Right. Right.
I gave up on it and just went and played Destiny. I've spent a lot of time in Destiny, and I really enjoy it. And I've been doing a lot of the random stuff, but I left it alone for about a week because, real life. And I came back and I felt like I was all of a sudden so behind on everything, that people were higher levels and had skills that I didn't have, and had all of a sudden I went from being middle to upper middle of the pack in any multiplayer stuff I did to being the bottom, clearly the bottom. Like, it was almost embarrassing that I was playing.
Right.
Like,
and I think that's one of those things that's been talked about a lot for Destiny in particular, is that there's a great risk of being left behind. Because so much...
WoW is, though, too.
No, but WoW... Maybe. Certainly, WoW, at this point in its life, now, coming up on its 10th anniversary this November, is much more about the top-level play. And it is now also, unlike in Destiny, very fast to level. You can level. It used to take a long time in WoW to level. Trust me. My brother, at some point, actually paid a guy in China to level his character for him so that he could get access to certain things. Because it took so much time to level, and he just didn't have time. That's different in WoW now, so it's much easier to get to that end game play, that top level play. But Destiny is still, the grind is super slow.
Oh yeah.
Super slow. And it seems to be one of the chief complaints against the game is that the grind is super slow. And you're not, it's so random if you're going to get the armor that has the light in it to move beyond level 20.
Yeah, so I got to level 20 quite a while ago, and I still have not been able to I'm on level 22 now, just barely. I finally got to level 22. And I've played probably as much Destiny after getting to level 20 as from when I got to level 20.
And you've only gained, what you said, 2 levels?
2 levels, yeah.
Right.
Because armor with light in it is just not that common. I picked up lots of other random armor and stuff. So it's not really, I mean, maybe I'm just not playing the right levels. I'm not really grinding for this stuff, but I'm not going to do it.
I just wonder a game with just so based on grinding. And maybe, if you like the grinding, okay, fine. But,
I mean, I would say that one of the things that they've been able to do very well has been they add like limited time things that have special bonuses.
Sure.
if you do them. They add like weird, like using the kind of world that they've created thus far to add little bits and spurts that fill in story, that can fill in whatever.
Sure.
So you keep going back because it's like, okay, there is still something. Even if you've beaten all of the levels, even if you've played all of the Crucible matches and you're an expert at that, they're still adding stuff for people to do, and they're still rolling. They're like slowly releasing. This week here's this gameplay for you to do, and this week here's this thing that you can do, and here's their benefits to doing these things, and so they're doing an impressive job of keeping content there for such the complaint that there was of there's not a lot of there by the end of it.
Sure.
It doesn't come to an end in a way that a lot of the other games do, where once you finish the main storyline, all you have is multiplayer or grinding. There's nothing in the middle. And so I think that they've done a good job of combining the multiplayer and the grinding and adding new intrigue around the multiplayer. Because it's all multiplayer.
Right. Yeah,
it's all the stuff that they're pushing. But it's interesting.
So, yeah, I mean, I think I'm we've said this before, but I'm very interested in what the December update is for Destiny.
Oh, yeah.
Because we know there's a big content patch coming in December. And if that can fix some of the loot drop stuff in particular, I think that's going to rocket that game up for me. In a way that right now, I think it's in the discussion for Game of the Year, but I don't feel comfortable putting it at the top of my list. If they can fix some of that grinding stuff and put a little more there, it may move up. It may move off the bubble for me. I don't know. But right now, it's just not quite right. It needs a little something more.
Right.
And we'll see if that happens. So, okay. Yeah. So
now for something completely different.
Completely different. So last week's Tech's Last Call was, we spent kind of 20 minutes talking about the Gamergate situation, which I know we've talked about on this show previously as well. And so at the core of Gamergate, I think, is the role of anonymity and anonymous hate speech on the internet. That these anonymous people can attack and harass others on the internet with impunity, without risk of repercussion, or even without risking their reputation. Just they can say whatever they want. And that has got me thinking about the role of anonymous speech. Obviously, anonymous speech is great when you're trying to overthrow a government, because then the government can't trace it to you,
Right.
and you can do quite a bit. And so I actually ended up recently defending anonymous speech on the internet. So I, in the other part of my life, I'm a grad student at Emory University. And Emory University has been experiencing some hate speech, both in meat space, with swastikas being spray painted on the walls of AE Pi, the Jewish fraternity. That's real appropriate. But also
Very creative.
Also hate speech on an anonymous social network called Yik Yak. Yik Yak is it's basically Twitter.
Trey,
Without
can you get the top hits on Yik Yak right now?
Yeah. So let me read you some yaks on Yik Yak. What Yik Yak is it's a microblogging service without a username. So you just sign up and you can post, and it can't be traced back to you. It can't be traced to anybody. And so it's just a stream of sometimes the most random and hilarious stuff, and sometimes it's hate speech. So let's see. My most recent yak is when your friends at state schools are enjoying Tuesday Booze Day and you're studying for midterms. What do you this weekend to avoid all things pride? Stud dying so much that I'm excited to take a shower. Was so faded in lab today, I thought my goggles were shades, and I was mad staring into this girl's blue eyes. After a while, she asked me what I was staring at when it all came together. Like, I wish my roommate would leave the room so I could touch myself. My life is a constant struggle between sleeping or doing coursework. I'm currently in bed. Oh well, I'll try again tomorrow. Skyping me with parents. We miss you so much, and I'm just like, can you put the dog on? So, like, a lot of it is just like the random.
It's mostly innocuous.
It's mostly innocuous, like BS about sex and studying and sleep and college life. And
Hashtag college.
And occasionally there are really hateful things out there. So there was a faction within Emory student government that wanted to ban Yik Yak from the university's network because of the hate speech that was occurring on it. On one level, I can understand it, especially with hate speech moving into meat space and not just on the internet. That does constitute harassment, abso-friggin-lutely. Like,
oh, yeah.
That hate speech, anonymous hate speech on the internet can really poison an environment. And Yik Yak is location-based, so you know that the hate speech that is being posted is inside your community. So it's yes, that's real bad. But I argued against banning it, not because I want to downplay the hate speech. It's real bad and shouldn't be, but because that's not technologically realistic. Even in the committee meeting, they're like, yeah, well, we can block it from Emory's network, but we can't block it from mobile devices with data. So I'm like, okay, so let's do something that has a point. You can't actually block Yik Yak. It's an app, so it's mostly on your phone, is how you interact with Yik Yak. You don't interact with it on the web. As a whole, you interact with it within this app, so that it has that location-aware side of it. So you can't block it anyways, so let's, like, educate ourselves about hate speech and have education programs, rather than banning anonymous
Right, especially
speech.
when it's been moved into the actual, like, real world of
Meat space.
being painted on walls.
Right.
Like, not Facebook walls.
Right. So, and this loops in with some of the reactions we've been getting over Gamergate. We haven't, as far as I can tell, I don't think what we've received constitutes the harassment that others have received.
No.
We have gotten some pretty mean, pretty strongly worded responses, but none of it has been like, oh, you're just such a terrible person. It's, oh, you're a terrible person for holding these ideas, which for the internet is downright civil.
Well, I mean, that's almost engaging you at your level.
That's almost engaging me at my level, because I think a lot of them are terrible persons, terrible people because of their ideas and tactics. So we're really just meeting each other one for one. I have certainly been involved, and one of the strains on our YouTube comments is like 38 miles, replies long. And because
they're all long replies.
I'll reply point for point with every comment posted. And luckily, in a way, we're a small enough site that I can get away with that.
Yeah, otherwise you'd have to quit your day job.
I'd have to quit my day job. And on Friday, I basically did. I did no other work except reply to YouTube comments on Friday. That was my work day on Friday, was dealing with, this.
However, it's important to note that Trey did beat the troll.
I did beat both of the trolls. I have the last word in both of the extended discussions. So, Achu Booyah, I win, I guess. But I think, as much as there are negatives for anonymous speech, there needs to be anonymous speech.
It's still important.
Because although it does allow for many of the terrible things that have happened, it also allows people to stand up without as much fear. Or it allows people to be themselves in a way that might otherwise be stigmatized. For instance, we had last week or 2 weeks ago, Facebook accidentally outing several transvestites and having to backtrack.
Because of the real name policy.
Because of the real name policy. And so that they could maintain a level of anonymity allowed them to really express who they were. Like I said, it allows you to overthrow a government in a better way. So but hate speech is a byproduct of that. There will be hate speech. And it's not that I'm dismissing it. I'm just recognizing that that's a fact of life on the internet.
Well, the other thing is that there will be hate speech. That's not even on the internet. Sure. There will be hate speech. There was hate speech before the internet. There will be hate speech in the internet as well. And there will be hate speech in whatever might come after the internet.
But the internet amplifies it in a unique way.
Right.
But the other point that I made is that in reality, all communication on the internet can very quickly become anonymous. You can create a fake Facebook account, and you now have the same level of anonymity that you have on Yik Yak. Because at that point, your name doesn't matter. And as long as it's a plausible name, and not like Starlight Sunchild, if it's like John Smith or Bob Johnson,
do this. Randomize a number between 1 and 100 twice, and select those names in the most common names.
Right, and you're fine. You're golden. And then you can post anonymously. Twitter is essentially anonymous speech, because Twitter you can go by a handle, and there's not a whole lot of checking of real names. You have to sign up with a name, but that could again be Bob Johnson. And as long as Bob Johnson holds an email address, Bob Johnson can do whatever, even if your real name is Sunlight Starchild or whatever. So anonymity is at the core of the web, because it is a real place, but it's not a place with real identities. All identities on the internet, and to a certain extent, all identities in reality are constructed. But you have a driver's license that it's tied to in real life that doesn't necessarily matter as much on the internet. So you can't stop the anonymous trolls, even if your service has a real names policy. Because you can't prosecute Bob Johnson, because Bob Johnson may not be a real entity.
Well, and then in the end, the bots will just take over real people's accounts.
Right.
And spam from real people's accounts.
Or you can access anything you want through VPNs. And so you can multiple routes that even your location is obscured. The internet just does not allow for that same level of personal accountability, no matter how hard you try. That was what Google and Facebook were always about with their real names policy, was that kind of accountability to stop the trolls. So either the trolls just move somewhere else, which is the other part of it.
Which is usually actually what happens.
You can just start an anonymous Reddit thread or an anonymous Tumblr and be doing the same job of Yik Yak even if you ban it. So trying to block a particular network is just cutting off the head of a hydra and 3 more pop out. That's just the nature of it, that these things are so easy to code. A microblogging service is almost trivial to code, to make work stably.
Right, and
scale is different.
At UT, we had a microblogging service very similar to this, 4 years ago.
Right, but this isn't hard.
Everyone loved it during finals because finals.
Right, and that's it's midterms now, and so that's what half of those yik yaks were about. And again, a lot of them are about studying and sex and booze, and that's most of them. And periodically they're interesting and supportive, and periodically they're downright terrible and racist, like life, really. The internet, again, this gets really philosophical, but humanity cannot create anything that doesn't speak to its own nature.
Right.
Maybe it amplifies certain aspects of its own nature in weird ways, but fundamentally what happens on the internet is a part of humanity. And we can educate and try to change that, but you can't make it go away. There will always be haters. You can fight back and push back, and we do. And we try to. Why did we take on Gamergate at all? But to take on the haters. But that doesn't mean you can ban your way and make haters go away. You can't do it. It doesn't work. It never has.
You'll just push them somewhere else.
You can't stop the signal. The internet is designed around a principle of rerouting. You block something, the internet reroutes. Internet culture works very much the same way as the underlying technological basis of it. They simply reroute. 4chan becomes too much rules, they start 8chan. Right? It's that same kind of thing. We're always finding another way. So we can fight the culture of hate, but you can't stop the mechanisms of it, because you lose something and you're fighting an impossible battle anyways.
Right. So and it's what you lose. I mean, it's not worth what you lose.
It's not worth what you lose, and you don't actually gain anything.
You lose everything and gain nothing.
Yeah. And then you're just participating in censorship, and that is antithetical to the internet and antithetical, even if censorship, free speech means even the speech you don't like. That's actually the point of free speech. It's not that you can say anything that you want that people like. It's that even the speech you don't want out there has the ability to be out there. It's the old Voltaire quote, right? That, I
disagree with what you say,
but I will die for your ability to say it. Right? Like, that's the core of what we're on about. That even the things we think are abhorrent have the right to be out there. Now, we can criticize and attack and fight back and say, you shouldn't do that. And that has no place in civilized discourse. But at no point, and that should
are
be
we proposing it being pulled? That's the line.
At no point do I think there shouldn't be mechanisms for people to be able to say it. If walled gardens want to pull it down, that's their right. Remember, you have no First Amendment rights on Twitter. You only have the rights Twitter's EULA gives you. But if you are managing your own site, and that is your own site, you have every right to post up there.
We discussed with the beheadings.
The most vile crap out there, assuming it doesn't break the law, such as in terms of child pornography. You want to run your terrible white supremacist thing? Go ahead. Do it. You have that right. That is the internet. But I'm going to fight back against it all day long. And hopefully my points and my arguments and my methods will win out. Because that's my actual hope for the internet. Is that we can all grow together as humanity by having all of humanity participating in this discussion in a way that we've never been able to talk to each other before. We will see the terrible jerks that are out there, but maybe we'll all learn something from each other as we go along. Maybe. Or maybe we'll all just talk about procrasturating. That was a yik yak. We just read it. We read about before the show was about procrasturating, and maybe that's what really will just go on because
the future is bright or procrasturating.
Yep, and it may just be procrasturating. On that note, we're out of here. Thank you so much for joining us in this week's Techies Talking Tech tonight. If you have any feedback for the show, you want to share your thoughts on procrasturating, podcast at techslastcall.com, facebook.com/techslastcall, pinterest.com/techslastcall, or at techslastcall on the Twitters. Good night. The future is right? Or Procrasturbating, right? That's the title.